Hello, and welcome to Ideas with Diana. It's been a few years since I've done an episode of Ideas with Diana. There's been a reason why. This episode is dedicated to the 80th anniversary of VE Day. Tomorrow, May 8th, is the 80th anniversary of VE Day when World War II and the Great Patriotic War was ended in Europe. Um, Even during that time, Churchill and uh, Roosevelt both gave credit to the Russian people and Russian soldiers who died, over 40 million, over 400,000 Americans, and many thousands of Europeans and millions of Europeans, civilian and otherwise, and those serving. Part of the reason why I'm making this dedication is because one of the ideals of why the Great Patriotic War was fought in World War II, basically, is because it was about the rise of fascism and the rise of control by media, the rise of political judicial punishment by those in power. When one looks at the last election, one candidate was prosecuted by different media in the United States, suspectedly, and also same thing by different judicial things, suspectedly. Um, as I watched 60 Minutes on Sunday, I heard where one person came on 60 Minutes after many people had refused to come on regarding issues about judicial policy that's being done or being suspected of being done. The thing is, what I say to CBS is, didn't you see this coming? When people were concerned about um, political candidates being prosecuted, suspected of being prosecuted by local DAs, state DAs, and other things. Didn't this remind you of A Tale of Two Cities, where basically those in political power use the justice system? Except in A Tale of Two Cities, there's a Scarlet Pimpernel who actually could rescue people from Robespierre, France, and take them to England to safety. And even in this environment that exists today, about where people question the media, question journalism, and whether it's really politically motivated or not, or whether the journalists are really neutral, as Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite were. Um, it's A Tale of Two Cities. And also, tonight I watched a thing on Putin regarding Frontline about attacks on political rivals. And this thing on Frontline, I was glad to see that basically it was factual. But it took me a while to come back to PBS. It took me a while to come back to legacy media because um, my family is a highly journalistic family. My step grandfather escaped from the Nazis in Salzburg because they wanted him to, quote, work on their atomic program in Copenhagen. Luckily, he was able to work on our atomic program at Los Alamos, in the Manhattan Project, and work with Oppenheimer. But even my grandfather, in many years when I was a young person, he taught, very young, he taught me about ethics in science and also ethics in journalism. And we'd have talks even when I was 7 years old because my parents believed I was trained in science and technology as well as management by what some people would call basically the St. Petersburg method, or in the German name it's called the Wonder Kid method, basically where people are trained at age 7, step by step, without even before formal education. But the high point of it was ethics, high point of it was journalism. So basically, part of the thing is we valued Edward R. Murrow, we valued Walter Cronkite, and many people, like for example, didn't realize when Walter Cronkite gave the news, you didn't think of Walter Cronkite as a member of the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, or any political party. He didn't. And at one point, when he did mention what his political basis was, people still considered him as Uncle Walt, basically, basically someone who's giving the news just the way it is, and basically not embellishing it, not trying to push an agenda and anything else. However, the last few years in the media, I've had great concern, so that's why I sort of tuned out some forms of media, even CBS for a while, and even PBS. I sometimes come back to PBS once in a while, but I still haven't been able to get back to watching certain news media day in and day out like I used to, because basically as soon as I see them swaying over to bias again, I have to change the channel because it's like you still haven't learned your lesson. So if we're going to talk about basically Putin or what's being done regarding this situation in war, basically we also got to look at ourselves. We got just because it's like when I was young, I used to play baseball, and sometimes we'd have some bad neighbor kids that come and join the game. They say, well, that side is cheating, so we can cheat too. No, just because the other side is cheating, we have to play the game honestly. We have to play the game straight. And if we don't play the game straight and go down to the level, what does that say about us? What does that say about people's trust in us? And that's what VED is really about, because basically, during that time, there was a time when the media was used, medical professionals were used, legal professionals were used, because even people in Germany had their professional licenses stripped, and they couldn't practice as doctors, lawyers, psychiatrists, engineers. And then eventually, like one German minister said, when they came for me, no one was there to talk. No one was there to defend me. The thing is, we got to remember, though, basically, although we talk about different countries and we consider different things, one thing I do is I watch the news later. I watch the international news late at night so I can see what the international news is fresh in the morning. So I watch different news channels, and some channels that the European Union claims that you shouldn't watch. But being an American, I believe in a free press, even if it's objectionable, and even if some people consider it not right, because in a democracy, part of a democracy, even during World War II and the Great Patriotic War, was to trust our citizens and free citizens everywhere, that they could separate the wheat from the chaff and also make their own decisions. They didn't have to have blinders on. They didn't have to be muzzled. They didn't have to be blindfolded. They didn't have to have this. So basically, regarding basic VED, it's important to remember that 40 million Russians and Soviets died who served in the military, and also civilians. Many millions of Europeans died who served in the military or civilians. 440,000 Americans died. Many Britons died, especially during the Battle of Britain, and especially during the V1, V2 attacks. And even the V1, V2 attacks were so brutal that basically the British government didn't allow the British people to see what the real films were like until 1965, 20 years after the end of World War II. So when I hear people start saying, well, we should boycott one group from not attending another group, no, on BED, it took all of us, even back then to help with the Soviet Union, as Churchill said, to disable the guts of the Nazi war machine. And basically, there are many people who live in Russia who may not agree fully with what's going on, but they don't have the resources to fight back or the resources to question. But another thing is what we should have learned from World War II, though, is basically trying to force an opinion like the Nazis did through propaganda, through denying of media, through basically abuse of the legal system, abuse of basically economics and other things, even subjugation of people. No, that's not the way. what happens, we have to work person to person. We have to be able to talk to each other. We have to be able to do things. Like, for example, there are many people who buy from Alibaba, AliExpress, Temu, um, as well as Amazon, Walmart, and others. Why do they do that? Because basically, um, they're buying because basically they're interested in buying a product or buying something else. But the thing is, when they buy from those sites don't say, well, we're not going to sell to you because your skin color is the wrong color, or because you go to the wrong church, or because of this or this. It's strictly, well, great, we're glad to have you as a customer. You want to buy a few computer chips? Fine. You want to buy some vitamin supplements? Fine. You want to buy some sewing stuff? Fine. That even like when I watch YouTube, I see many people worldwide who do sewing and also do doll modifications with the Barbies, from different countries. And the thing is, it's nice to see this because YouTube is showing the internationalization. However, with YouTube, I would still like to see YouTube do like what X did, is allowing different foreign broadcasts back on YouTube again, rather than what's going on. Because part of the thing is about sifting away from the chaff is allowing the people to see what is the chaff. Make them have them make the decision what the chaff is. People know when they're being conned. People know when they're being played. People know when they're being used. And what happens if we don't trust that people don't know that, then um, it makes it very easy for a very radical group, very dangerous group, to come in and take over and subject people. And that's why, like in this last election, I was very disappointed with what I saw, because I was thinking we just became a third world country. The person who lost the last election was being prosecuted by the party that won the last election. In in all parts of the United States, this has never happened, never happened. And part of the thing of VE Day is that basically was to make sure something like that never happened again. That a political party that's in power persecutes members of the opposite political party because they want to hold on to their political base. That's not justified for any reason whatsoever. Um, so when I think about this VE Day and the 80th anniversary, there's a lot riding on this. There's a lot riding on this between um, my country, the United States, the European Union, Great Britain, Russia, China. There's a lot riding on this, and um, whatever minor things that are happening, we got to learn to work for a greater purpose of what we have to do, because the world now has about 9 billion people compared to about 1 billion people in 1945, 3 billion people during the 90s. We have greater natural disasters that are coming. We all need to work together. We all need to work together. I mean, and I'm not saying that we should do the thing of Star Trek. I have some issues with Star Trek mythology, especially now that I'm older and I sort of understand more about some of the things where my parents were trying to warn you about, especially with the episodes of Ensign Low where someone was demoted 2 steps in rank. In later episodes, Ensign Low was promoted to camp commander, but she should have been admiral. That's part of the reason why I have some issues still with Star Trek, and I still can't watch it at the same type of support that I did before. That's why I watch it if I do watch, I watch with a grain of salt. And that's why with the world situation, yes, we can't be completely innocent, but what happens, we can't be so cynical that we don't want to work together, and that we let our petty hatreds stop us from working on it. We need to work together. We need to work. And the 80th anniversary of VE Day should teach us that basically, um, even before the advent of nuclear weapons, we almost came very close to destroying society in 5,000 years to society in 5 years. Do we really want to come that close again? I don't. That's why when I worked as emergency chairman of emergency management for the Society for Computer Simulation, I did my best to try to foster togetherness, working with members from the Academy of Science in St. Petersburg, even when they presented, and even when they presented papers. The 1995 conference was the greatest moment at the end of the Cold War when many researchers came from St. Petersburg. They flew into Phoenix, and they came and they showed a new research and development special jet plane that they developed, that they flew in, that could land on an airfield and land on a grass field. Um, it's wonderful to see this cooperation. And what happens, we need to find ways to cooperate, and we need to find ways to keep a high tolerance as to what is the tolerance of freedom, what is the tolerance of quality of lifestyle. But we got to be able to continue to talk, continue to buy stuff, continue to sell to each other. That's how we work together. That's how we solve problems. When we present make it hard for people to buy stuff from each other, trade with each other, talk with each other. That's how we get into problems like that led to World War II and the Great Patriotic War that almost destroyed our civilization as we knew it. That's why the 80th commemoration of VE Day is very important. And I hope wherever they have the commemorations, I hope basically for all the members there, I hope that basically it's a good commemoration and it's uneventful, so that everyone can just go there, have their commemoration, and head back to where their homes are like that, though, without any type of special weirdness, I should say, like that, though. So in closing, when I talked with a friend of mine who served during the Vietnam era, he was surprised. He asked me, "Well, do you know how many news agencies are going to post things on VE Day?" I'm glad. In closing, I'm glad to see that the BBC did this in London. They had different things of buildings lit up, showing different things and different pictures from the newspapers back then, and also on an international. So tonight I'm gonna do what I normally do. So I watch the international news from 12 to 2 because I like to see what the news is in Europe, because London, in my time zone, is 6 hours ahead. Moscow is 8 hours ahead. So that gives me a chance to see what the news is in the morning. I recently bought a set of special headphones from Amazon. So when I do watch TV late at night, to try to be respectful to my neighbors so I don't disturb their sleep. Well, let me know what you think. I prefer to be reached on on YouTube, mostly like that, though. But if you wish, um, X is okay. Um, Facebook is okay. Pinterest is okay. But I prefer to have it centralized to YouTube, like they are X, because there's some days that basically I feel good, some days I don't, and so it helps to have things in a central place so that basically I don't tire myself out due to my atrial fib. Well, thank you for listening, and please remember the 80th anniversary of VED is very important for us to move together as a world, as a culture. It's a trying time for everybody, but we got to remember, as long as we can talk, we can evaluate what we say, we can trade, there is a solution. Thank you again.